And it is time once again for another AEW Dynamite review here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast. I just happen to be that guy, Warren Hayes. Hello. And I just happened to have watched Dynamite yesterday, the May 1st, 2024 edition of Dynamite that we are reviewing today on May 2nd, 2024. It's all coming together rather neatly, like a nice little package, isn't it? Thank you, everyone, for press and play, for listening, whether you're listening on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application. I appreciate it tremendously. And we are going to get through everything that happened on last night's Dynamite. We're going to get into it right now. As we mentioned, the May 1st edition, 2024, from Winnipeg, Manitoba, at the Canada Life Center. 4,225 tickets distributed for the show. A show that, this for AEW attendance, this is actually above average. So this was a pretty good house. However, last time AEW came this way was on March 15 last year, 2023. 7,361 tickets. And it's not as if AEW didn't try to get people packed in the house. They put Chris Jericho on the show. And of course, they announced the return of Kenny Omega, the hometown boys. And it didn't do quite as good business this time around. We'll just have to hope that it gets better, as always, right? But I don't want to poo-poo on this too much because it is an above average gate. Now, you know, how much money did they make because they're selling in Canadian currency? Well, that's a good point. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, but I don't want to beat on this too much. This was a good house for recent TV tapings. It's an unfortunate drop from last year, but last year, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first AEW show, the first Dynamite in Winnipeg, if I'm not mistaken, and everyone was healthy and just kicking ass, and bit of a different time. And then 2023 just happened, right? 2023 just happened for AEW. I'm sure look, you can piece it also. I'll piece them together. CM Punk, the Collision stuff, MJF and the Brochachos. There's a lot of stuff that happened in 2023, which I think contributed to less interest, lower gates, so on and so forth. So, they're coming back this year, a year removed. I think it's pretty good business. I think it indicates that they shouldn't go back too often to Manitoba, despite the fact that they have two of their biggest stars, despite the fact that two of their biggest stars are from Manitoba. This to me says you do have a chance to burn the territory if you go too often. So hopefully they'll stay away. So there you go. So we're not going to harp too much on this. We're going to get right into the show. Outside of saying, like I said, good, an above average gate here. The show starts with Tony Khan, neck brace and all, sitting in front of a series of monitors. We are told by the little indicator that the video that is being broadcast right now is live via satellite. I don't buy that for a second. Tony's there and he's delivering his lines and saying that because of the injuries suffered at the vile hands of the Young Bucks, or the vile injuries that he suffered at the hands of the Young Bucks, but the hands could be vile as well. You could have vile injuries delivered from vile hands. You could do both. However, get a thesaurus right? Instead of using vile twice, vile and despicable. The vile injuries suffered at the despicable hands of the Young Bucks, right? It's like Taz last night pulls out pugnacious, right? He just drops that, no one bats an eye except me. I'm on my couch. I'm popping. It's like pugnacious, not tenacious, not, relentless. No, he's pugnacious. I'm like, Jesus, let's go. Look at this guy. I'm sitting there and I'm going, all right, let's use words. Let's expand vocabularies. Language is a beautiful thing. There's literally hundreds of words we could use. Hundreds upon hundreds of words. That's how there's got to be at least hundreds of words, right? A couple of hundred words. Anyway, the screen starts to glitch, and the Bucks then appear, and they're in the production truck, and they're like, oh, we lost connection with Tony. Tony, we love you. They do the disingenuous bullshit, or the very corporate, sniveling, stuff, and they say, people have been asking why weren't we fired last week after the vile actions. And they said, hey, look, 3 words, ironclad contracts. Is that 3? Those 3 words? Maybe it's 2 words. When you hyphen a word, is that 1 word? Because it's not ironclad altogether. Because an ironclad altogether is a type of boat, right? That's specific, right? It's a warship. Yeah. So when you can't, they don't have ironclad contracts, all 1 word. They have ironclad, and I think it's hyphenated, ironclad. So I don't know if that means, because if they had ironclad, all 1 word contracts, that means they have warship contracts. They have something that has to do with, they have a warship contract, a 19th century battleship contract, essentially. Oh, I'm feeling it today, folks. We're gonna be going up and on and all around the track today. Hopefully not. Hopefully we can get. Hopefully not too much anyway. So basically there's a look, ironclad contracts. You can't, obviously this was a protection put in for the EVPs and didn't extend to CM Punk because, you thought of it too. You were sitting at home when they were saying they can't fire us because we have ironclad contracts. And you're like, well, why didn't CM Punk have one of these? Come on now. You knew this. You thought of it yourselves. And they also say that if Tony Khan isn't available to run the show, well, the EVPs will. So they're in charge. So I'm still giving all of this the benefit of another week or two because, I'm not super keen into a power struggle. And I think we touched on this last week. I don't know. I don't remember stuff. You asking me to remember things? My own creations? What I purport? You want me to remind, my mind is just overwhelmed by the use of pugnacious. So, I got to make space then. There's stuff that has to be deleted. The hard drive's almost filled, folks. When you hit 50, at some point, the hard drive is full and you have to delete. You have to send some things to the recycle bin and then empty it if you're going to make room for more things to go in. So I don't know what I talked about last week. I don't even know what I had for dinner last night. That's not true. I had delicious ribs. I had some fantastic ribs that my oldest cooked up. God, they were good. His spice rub was amazing. And they were so tender and fall off the bone. But back to the to the Bucks here. I'm not excited about the idea of an authority figure thing, and I really thought that the Bucks would, I feel like the Bucks oftentimes, most of the time, are more in tune with what's going on in pro wrestling and have a good feel for the environment. And I feel like they could have felt that doing an authority figure angle was kind of boring. Just kind of, all right. Because God, we've seen this so much, and when you're a company that is advertising themselves as being the challenger brand, the Pepsi of pro wrestling, as opposed to, we're not reiterating that. You can listen to the Mr. Warren Hayes show that I recorded this week if you want all my thoughts on that. But if you're establishing yourself as the challenger brand, right, then you should be challenging what we know and try to do something else. Now, there's a lot of things that AEW tries to do differently than others. We're going to talk about one in just a minute or two. But there's a lot of things that they try to do, but it backfires because people are naturally resistant to change. So then when they fall back into standards like this, and it's like, oh, they're doing an authority angle. What is this? 2008, But then if they don't, but then if they do things that seem a little more daring, then people also get mad. Like, sometimes I feel like it truly is a no-win for this company sometimes. So I'm not excited about it. I'm not like, oh, yippee, a power play, trying to wrest control away from Tony Khan. But that's not how it seems. It's just like, what did Tony say? He's like, he says, I'm not going to be there to run Dynamite on location. And then the Bucks said something to the effect that they're, in the bylaws or whatever the fuck, in the contracts, basically, if Tony's not around, the EVPs are in charge, right? That's what they said. So, it's not as if they're wresting control away from him for now. It's more like, well, he's not here, so we're, the cat is away, the mice will play kind of thing. And that I'm okay with. They just want to go around and be dicks. But that's also not quite it, because they made a match for Double or Nothing. Anyway, again, we'll get to that in a second. But I don't know. It's not particularly inspiring. Right? It's not something that I'm, if anything, I was like, maybe they're going to be more like an NWO type, where they're just like a rogue faction, or a Bullet Club type, where they're just a rogue faction, and they stir shit up, right? And since the two of the members of the rogue group are executives in the company, then they're able to protect the shenanigans to sort of make sense as to why they just weren't outright fired, right? Which is a reason. Like stuff like NWO always, almost made sense, but also didn't quite make sense, because it's like, well, just keep these people off TV, kind of thing. Like when the NWO started and they'd have their vignettes, they'd always have this is paid for. This is paid for by the NWO, right? They'd always have that disclaimer, and you're like, oh shit. See, that was a nice little bit of attention as to why this was on TV. WCW, why would WCW greenlight NWO propaganda on their TV when they're obviously the bad guys and when they want to tear the institution down? Why would they air segments with Nash, Hall, and Hogan? Well, they're airing it because the NWO paid for it, and that's how it goes with sponsorships. You just take whoever's money and you air whatever they have, right? Because that's how sponsorship, that's how advertisement works. Just give them the money. They can't tell you no. That's what I was kind of thinking that the new elite would be. And maybe there's still time to get there, but I'm not particularly encouraged. I think there were signals in this show as well. With the Kenny Omega segment, that this is going to be a bit of a power struggle thing, and I'm not keen on it. I don't know. I don't know. But we'll look. I'm still reserving like complete judgment. I feel like I just want to see how far this goes, and I'm still keeping it at arm's length. We'll just see. Maybe also what doesn't help me be enthusiastic about all of this today is that, and should have said this from the start. I didn't think this was a particularly good episode of Dynamite. I think there were some good moments, but I think overall, I think the vibes were off. I think it was a weird show. I think things didn't quite hit or land the way maybe they were expected. And coming off a fun show. Last week was a fun show. I was also expecting this week to, rub my hands together. All right, let's see what they've concocted for us this week. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, Shane Strickland, also known as Swerve, he comes out for the first in-ring segment of the mic. He basically does his shtick from was it Collision? His match with Claudio on Collision, by the way. I didn't mention this on the Mr. Warren Hayes show this week, but that was tremendous stuff. That was just a blast. Collision this week was a tremendous blast, and Rampage as well. With the parking lot fight, so much fun, just tons of fun. So he basically does his shtick a little bit from Collision. I think it was on Collision where he cut the promo where he called it the what the Bucks did a bitch move. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm out here. I'm supposed to find out who my opponent is to Double or Nothing. Let's do it. And then the Bucks appear on the Tonytron. They congratulate him, of course, but they say, we found your perfect opponent for Double or Nothing, a Canadian former champion. He's ready to go. And it is Christian Cage who comes in. And I said, this is perfect. This is perfect. Honestly, I don't think you could have a better number one defense out the gate for a pay-per-view for Swerve than despicable heel who's been off TV for weeks at this point. And I was absolutely excited to see him back. And I'm sure a lot of people were too. He's just fantastic. And well, let's get through the segment and then we'll do some analysis. How about that? How about we stick to the basics? How about that? So Christian Cage is there and he's got the patriarchy. Everyone's there, all four of them in there, and Christian Cage has the microphone, and he walks up and the music, the music fades out, and he comes up and he lifts the microphone, but instead of speaking into it, he just pops Strickland right in the mouth with the microphone, and I'm like, of course, a fucking course. It's just tremendous, right? And what I was then of course they go after Strickland. Strickland fights back, gets some licks in, but he gets distracted when he winds up to swing at what's her name, Mother Wayne. What I keep forgetting. I hate calling her Mother Wayne. It feels strange to me, but I can't remember her first name. Anyway, so that distracts him. He's like, oh, I am not going to hit a woman, which is weird because, but then at the same time, he's a babyface. But it's weird because he's usually despicable. And Christian Cage is like, nah. So, they take advantage of it and they beat him up, and then he's lying on the mat. And then Christian Cage cuts a promo where basically he goes in to add a little juice to this so that why is this shit happening? Well, then, we've got some reasons for this. Where he says, look, you attacked my protege, my son, Nick Wayne, bloodied him up in his school. And then when we were at Wembley, we were in a tag match and you lost it for us, So Cage is like, so Cage cuts this promo and he even, of course, there's no dead fathers here, at least not that we know of as of recording. But he tells Strickland that he's going to give his daughter a father she can be proud of for the rest of her life, not you, talking about himself. And then Killswitch yanks some hair, like a dread, yanks it out of Swerve's head, just womp, and then gives it to Christian, and then gives it to Nick Wayne, to which the audience chants, "Eat it." By the way, very weird crowd. I would even go as far as to say not a good crowd. And at some point I was wondering, is like, man, did they just mix it in? Did they mix the crowd noise in weirdly because they didn't want to do the audio issues that they didn't want to deal with the audio issues they did last week, right? No, I think this was just a bad crowd. I think this was a bad audience because they were dead for a lot of stuff tonight, including, a lot of Christian Cage's promo until he did the "shut up while I'm conducting business" thing, and so I've got a lot of thoughts. One of them being that I like this main event. I think it's a good main event to put on Double or Nothing. Now a lot of people are saying, this is an underwhelming main event for Double or Nothing, which is the biggest pay-per-view of the year for AEW. And I think this is something I don't know where this started, where Double or Nothing was considered the biggest pay-per-view. Like they try to make this the WrestleMania, and I'm like, do they do that? Because maybe they were for a time, and Double or Nothing, yes, was the first. I understand it was I understand the history of it, but I kind of feel like it's not the WrestleMania anymore. And then for a while they were trying to do it with All Out. Now we're doing All In, which is just like a huge show. And then consistently over the past 2 years anyway, 2 to 3 years, Revolution has been the most consistently great AEW pay-per-view. So I'm like, what is Double or Nothing's role in here? I think we're attributing a position to Double or Nothing that might not be there. I think it's like fan canon. I think it's maybe things that were said 2-3 years ago that no longer apply because the business has changed. The business of AEW has changed. So I don't know. Like it feels fine to me. I think it also feels fine because Christian Cage is going to be a guy who is going to make Swerve look like $1 million. Christian Cage has it only hits, As the other guy, they say, mellow, don't miss. Well, I think it applies to Christian Cage first and foremost. He's been phenomenal in AEW. He has done tremendous work getting people over and working with others and just having this great presence. This is a shit heel. This is a guy that people do not like, and he's being put in the ring with your fresh out of the box, first time out the go world champion, Swerve. I think you couldn't have picked, I believe, a better a better opponent, where the match is going to be very good, Swerve is going to retain, and everything will be fine. Everything will be absolutely fine in the world. Whereas if you were to do this, let's say with, first of all, like, do you want to burn Danielson? Because, why wasn't it Danielson? Why wasn't it Mox? Do you want to burn these matches right now? You want to give this guy a reign, right? And guys like, like Mox, for instance, he's busy, and Danielson is selling an injury, and, Ospreay's embroiled in something else. And we all know inevitably the collision is likely going to be Strickland and Ospreay. So we don't need to do this right off the gate. We can take this path, and I think it's fine. Anyone, said, well, I've seen comments, it's like, oh, well, this ain't going to make me buy a pay-per-view. I was like, okay. Like, that's the best way to show that you're, that you're not into it, but you also can give it a couple of weeks of build, because that's what we're getting into, and the results just may surprise you. I don't know. It might be absolutely fine as well. It might be it might be the thing. But I kind of agree that as it pertains to having a marquee main event, we're not quite there. It's not quite there. Which attaches to something I was talking about recently as well, that AEW feels like it's in a bit of a reconstruction period, that we're resetting a lot of storylines and angles and situations to, better fit this new reality that we're in, with the new signees and the people who are still injured. Like, look, MJF apparently had to undergo surgery instead of just healing up through physical therapy or rehab. Apparently, so that means he's going to be out for a little longer, which means that, the Brochacho stuff and Adam Cole, we're stretching that out some more. So I don't know what was planned, but I feel like there's a lot of things that are being pivoted around, and I think that's fine. I think it's fine. It isn't. I'm telling you, it feels like when I say we, I mean them, that they're rebuilding something here. They're rebuilding. They're rebuilding their inside, their structure on the inside. Who's going to be featured? Who's not? There's probably plans set up for Wembley that are coming out of this. Like it. Yeah, it does feel like it's a holding pattern, right? It does feel like it's a holding pattern. But I'll tell you what, I have people, you look at other cards happening outside in the world right now, wrestling shows that are happening on live, wrestling live events of the premium kind that are happening, in just a couple of days. And you look at the cards and you wonder, where is the same level of energy towards these cards that are completely uninspired, But no, we're going to get excited for those, but we're going to poo-poo on the others. And we're going to poo-poo on Swerve. And that's what I wanted to talk about. First of all, you know what? I'm going to keep this for, I want to make it a side. But the amount of scrutiny that is put onto Swerve Strickland right now as a world champion is ridiculously, insanely. The amount of scrutiny is ridiculous, is what I'm trying to say. The amount of picking apart and nitpicking everything in regards to his presentation and who he is, and is weird to me. It is so tremendously odd to me. for a first-time guy, look, let me flip this around. You keep hearing in wrestling, it's the same people are at the top. We want new faces. We want new, fresh faces in world title situations. You even hear people say, not enough people of color, not enough black people winning titles. And I'm like, sure. And these are all things that I agree with. And we want younger guys. They don't always have to be in their 40s. It doesn't have to be these over the hill. I agree. Wrestling companies have to be more daring. They have to try stuff out. Why is it always the same thing? I agree. And it seems to me that Swerve Strickland hits all the boxes. Plus, on top of that, good wrestler, hell of a presence, tremendous charisma. And yet, we're going to pick apart all the reasons that he's not a good champion. We're going to get mad when other wrestlers from other companies congratulate him. And we're immediately going to shit on his reign. Look, the one criticism I had, we're going to delve into Collision territory a little bit here. Last week on this review, I told y'all, his first appearance on Dynamite. I told you, it's like, I think it was fine. I would have preferred maybe something a little more grandiose, something a little more with a little more meat, something where was the promo? Why didn't he talk? That was my criticism. Then what happens on Collision? So then I realized what happens, right? On Collision last week was following up some playoffs. I don't know which ones. Was it the NBA? Was it the NHL? Was it both? I don't know. But Collision was following up after a playoff game. Who did they put in the first quarter hour but their brand new, out of the box world champion, a guy who doesn't look like, a guy who is not, just another bearded white guy. He comes to the ring and he cuts a promo and it does, of course, tremendous rate. But now I got it and was like, oh, I see why they wanted to do this on Collision, because they wanted more people to see him. All right, and I get it. And then he has the match with Claudio, which slapped. It was tremendous. Now, could they have just skipped Dynamite? Sure, I guess maybe, but then I would have probably complained last week that where was Swerve? Why didn't he bring him out on the first Dynamite after his win? That would have been me. In all fairness, I know how I am. I'm self-aware enough to know that I would have been part of the crew saying, you can't start your rampage after your pay-per-view after a big world title win and not have the world champion on it. So they did it but they did the big shebang on Saturday. I think it's a good payoff. And I saw people go, oh, he's cutting another promo on Dynamite. I said, well, he didn't cut one last week. He should cut one this week. And look at what they're doing. They're putting him in the first quarter hour. Why do you think they are starting off the show with this new world champion? I'll tell you why. Because they want the lead-ins. They want the people who are hanging out after they're done watching, the old, what's his name? Big Bang Theory. Old Sheldon. There we go. Took me a while to get the gag. They want those people to see their champion. They want them to see this guy. And they see him as someone who can move numbers, that can generate a different interest, a different type of audience, because he doesn't look like anyone else. He really doesn't. Tony Khan has faith in him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be opening. He wouldn't have been opening in the first quarter hour 3 different editions of AEW programming this week. He just wouldn't have, especially the one following a basketball game or a hockey game. I don't know which one. You know, does this make sense to you? And yet, online, we're bickering about, well, is Swerve good? Is Swerve all right? Is he? What do you want? What do you want? Swerve is essentially everything that wrestling fans bitch about. Let me say that again. Don't take that out of context. Swerve Strickland is essentially the answer to everything that wrestling fans usually complain about regarding world champions. About having some movement at the top, mixing things up. He's basically that embodiment there. And yet, they're not happy. They're going to find another way to sort of complain and pick apart. Now, if there's any underlying issues that may have to do with someone's skin color, well, there's no reasoning with these people. And they're just awful and terrible then. And they're using whatever excuse to they're just saying in a very, very soft voice what they wish they could say out loud. Maybe. And I'm having, populated, X formerly Twitter for a while. I could probably tell you that, yeah, there's probably some people with some underlying conditions there. But swerving it about it, I do not understand this unbearable scrutiny that he has. It's emblematic of AEW in general. But the guy, Christ. I don't know why some people are already taking him behind the shed. Barely 2 weeks in. Take him around the shed. I don't get it. I really don't. Again, to be clear, is the Double or Nothing main event this earth-shattering thing that is going to generate? But no, it's not. This is not a main event where now, will it be good to very good, possibly even great? Yes. Those of us who will be watching will most likely be highly entertained, and we'll have a good one to talk about the next day. Anyway, let's move on. We've got more to talk about. We get a video package of the House of Black, setting up the match with Adam Copeland, which happens right now. Adam Copeland defeated one of the three mystery members of the House of Black, which was Buddy Matthews. And this match was a weird match, and I have no other way to. That is the qualifier that I can get, that I'm going to give it. It is weird. It was a weird ass match. I don't understand I don't understand how this was put together. I don't understand how this was really. I don't understand how they decided to structure this, but the pacing was all over the place. And there was, because everything was slow. Everything was like headlock. Everything was slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. There'd be an explosion of stuff happening. And then, we slap on a headlock. And, okay. Peaks and valleys and these but peaks and valleys, you get the valleys when you're going you're climbing up the mountain and you're like, yeah, all right, this is going great. We're almost up there. And then suddenly it just tapers off into a valley. And you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. This isn't, it's not as fun, It's as if, let's say you do a roller coaster ride. And you do, and you do the one with the really high peak, and the little train, the little, the little roller coaster train is going up, clunk, 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 clunk. And you got the anticipation, and it's going higher and higher and higher, and then it tips down, but for a big rush, right? But instead of that, it just sort of goes, it sort of just like goes down a little bit, but then levels off, and you're like, this is the worst roller coaster of all time. Like it should be going faster, but it feels like it's stalling. I don't know what happened in this match. Then they do, the double crossbody spot where they both land into each other, and Buddy Matthews starts bleeding from the mouth. I'm like, okay, what is this for? Okay. And Cope keeps beating up on him, It's not and it's just the same thing that happens over and over again. I don't know. I thought this very weird pace. I thought it was slow. And I feel like every time something was percolating, someone, took it off the fire. I don't know. 2.5 is what I gave this match. I think this is my least favorite Adam Copeland match since he joined AEW. I really didn't think that was all that good. After the match, and the weirdness continues. Then after the match, Copeland goes to concerto Buddy Matthews. I'm like, wait a second. You're the baby face. What are we doing here? Then Malachi Black appears. The lights go out and then he appears and he's like, do it. Crush him, And then Buddy Matthews gets on his knees and is like, come on, man, kill me, It's like. And then commentary connects with the Mist, right? Because now, did the Mist invade Adam Copeland and is now turning him into the dark side? Is he going to become? Are we getting Judgment Day version 2.0 or 3.0 at this point? Like I was looking at this at the end, I was like, oh, look at all the WWE guys WWEing it up. What? Again, tell me I'm wrong. We'll see how this goes, but I mean, I'm like, this Adam Copeland's run was going so well anyway. But look, also might just be a bump in the road. Because logically, if we're, you all know how this is going, right? He's going to fight Malachi Black at the pay-per-view. So next we got Brody King. Brody versus Cope is probably going to be fantastic, right? Brody's not going to slow down and he's not going to slap on headlocks when he should be, doing his fucking flipping senton bullshit, right? No. Next, am I forgetting something? I feel like I'm forgetting something. I am not. Okay. Samoa Joe had a fantastic squash match against Isaiah Cassidy. Just a fantastic squash. I have nothing bad to say about it. In fact, I wish more squash matches were like this. This was fun as hell. And the greatest nope of all time. Well, maybe not the greatest, but one of them. Where Joe's on the floor, Isaiah Cassidy does a tope con hilo, and Joe nopes, and Cassidy takes it flat on the back, on the floor. Like that takes guts, pal. That is commitment. That is one of the greatest nopes. It's like, and it is one of the greatest nopes that Samoa Joe's ever done. But it's Isaiah Cassidy's going to be immortalized here, right? He's going to be immortalized as the guy who he ate shit on this one. Yeah, it's kind of like, back in the day when they'd have, they'd do the Michael Jordan posters, they're dunking. There'd always be a guy underneath going, it's like, there's always a guy he's dunking on, right? So the guy who's dunking on is immortalized in that poster where Jordan just looks like $1 million, right? So that's the same thing here. Joe is doing one of his nopes. And Isaiah Cassidy's the chump who's eating it, right? It's tremendous. Wins with the muscle buster. I got nothing bad to like from here. That was a good little change of pace here. We get a promo from Sky Blue, who says she wants to where she calls out Willow Nightingale for a TBS title match on Rampage, which followed. By the way, I watched Rampage, but we're not going to go over it. But I just look, the women main evented it, Willow and Sky Blue, and guess what? It was a no DQ match. And guess what happens with women in plunder matches in AEW? It fucking rules. And I got to tell you, Sky Blue, she's A-okay in my book now. Back again. She works too hard. She works too hard and has tightened up her game so much to not be recognized. We got to talk about it. It's tremendous. Anyway, we're not doing a Rampage review, but go out of your way to watch this match. These women's division plunder matches in AEW are the tradition. That's the tradition, the long-standing tradition in AEW. That's the one. These plunder matches that the women's division puts on, it is tremendous. Once again, just a blast. Willow rules, and Sky Blue worked her ass off here. It is tremendous. Another quick aside. I wouldn't be surprised if I find it peculiar that recently we've been experiencing a lot of Dynamite followed by a live Rampage situation, right? Because Rampage was preempted because of, I don't know, hockey, NBA, playoffs. Okay, it's being preempted this weekend. So, look, I would not be surprised in the slightest if Dynamite turns into a 3-hour show at this point. Would I be disappointed? Yes, because I think a 3-hour show is terrible. 3 hours of weekly wrestling in one sitting is a bad thing. It is one of the reasons that turned Raw into a bad show. There's multiple reasons, but one of the premier reasons is that this 3 hours of pro wrestling per week just never turned into something really good. Could AEW do better? Well, in theory, by definition, they could and they should, but will they? I'm not confident. So anyway, I just want to, don't be surprised if when finally the negotiations come to an end and Tony gets his TV deal, that one of them is, that Friday night hour of programming, we're done with that. Slap it on your Wednesdays. You're like, you're always in the top 3 shows regardless. Let's do that instead, Orange Cassidy, after all this, makes his way to the ring. He thought that after Saturday, his friends Chuck and Trent would just, fight it out, and then we'd all be friends again. But that didn't happen. Great angle after, where Trent basically shatters the ankle of Chuckward, and And Orange Cassidy says with heavy heart, because of what Trent Beretta did, Chuck Taylor will never wrestle again. Now, is that a shoot or not? I couldn't tell you. I know the injury was substantial. So I don't know. I'm in the realm of it's a work right now. I'm not sure that it's a shoot. And then Trent comes in and he says, "Oh, look at this! Once again, Orange Cassidy making everything about himself. You know, his friend gets injured and he's trying to make it about him because I forgot to mention that Orange was saying, next time I see Trent, it's on site kind of thing, right? Well, he wasn't lying because took off his jean jacket and made a beeline for him, and then security came in, kept them apart. Statlander came out. I like this little inclusion of Chris Statlander just to make sure this continuity is clear. She's off doing other things with Stokely and Willow, right? But she still has these ties with these guys. She's still their friends, right? And I like that they've just peppered her in because it makes everything feel more substantial and real, and we're not just relegated. It's another company would just completely sever ties with the other thing and never speak of it again. Whereas here, it's not because you're not constantly coming out to the ring with these people that you're no longer friends with them because you have such a history. So I don't hate this. It helps create some nice continuity, a little bit of authenticity here. And then Don Callis comes out and starts whispering into Orange Cassidy's ear. Like, what? Blood Orange Cassidy? Is that... Oh, we know he's going to have to... He's got some vacancies in the Don Callis family, right? I was saddened to learn that Powerhouse Hobbs is going to have to undergo surgery for the injury he suffered last week, and that fucking sucks. He's snake bitten. It really, really sucks. We'll see. We'll see when it pertains to Orange Cassidy. Renee Paquette is with the Young Bucks, but they give their time up for Jack Perry. He says he meant it, what happened last week, and because he's a scapegoat, someone needs to make that sacrifice. I don't know. A new era under the new elite. Okay. Chris Jericho then hits the ring. Ted Irvine is in the front row clapping away because it's his son. And we get the FTW title match under FTW rules. Chris Jericho defeated Katsuyori Shibata. I'm going to look. I think this match was the best thing on the show last night. And I'm just pulling up the cage match here. And you see, the inmates on cage match gave this 6.66 out of 10 out of 130 votes. When I started jotting down notes last night, I mentioned that it was at 5, and even 5 out of 10. And I really think that this is proof positive that people really, really don't like Chris Jericho, that this unbridled hatred that they have of him is poisoning their thought process, because I'm not saying this was a 4-star match, right? I gave this 3.5 stars. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not sitting here telling you, oh yeah, this is put this on your match of the year list. That's not what I'm saying. But I think this is a better match than a lot of people want to accept because Chris Jericho. Because it was, as far as plunder matches go, with the fucking garbage pails and all that, I thought it was a blast. I thought it was really well done. And Katsuyori Shibata has some real comedy chops. Who would have thunk it? Katsuyori Shibata, who was in it, as commentary pointed out, in his 22-decade plus career in pro wrestling, was taking part in his very first no disqualification match. That's bonkers. Also makes sense, but also bonkers to think that in 20 years you'd never done a no DQ match. You know, because I was groaning, you know, at the garbage can and the swatting the kendo stick, and I'm like, there is no fucking way in hell. I hate those spots so much in every plunder match, or most of them, when they do that. You know, they put the garbage can over the dude and the other dude goes whack, you know, with the kendo sticks, or they'll with garbage can lids, and it's like that doesn't hurt. If anything, it's annoying, but it doesn't hurt. Well, here, fucking Katsuyori Shibata was like, no, I'm no selling this shit. Then honestly, the visual of Shibata headbutting Jericho, I'm sorry, it was tremendous. And the chop the chop battle they had, 4 minutes of just destroying each other's chest. What am I saying? Chris Jericho getting his chest destroyed. Like it was a whole shade of Barney. Wasn't pink. Wasn't whatever. You know, we're talking full on Tinky Winky here. Shout out to my kids, to the kids shows that my kids used to watch. There's pucks. Jericho has to throw a puck. And I think Shibata got it on the nose, right? He got it right on the face. He has to throw a puck at Shibata so they'll stop chopping him. We get tables out and whatnot, and Big Bill runs in to play interference and put Shibata through a table, and Jericho pins him. Jericho was completely overwhelmed here. And now we've come together a little later on. They have a little backstage segment where Jericho, or was that on Rampage? See, now I'm a little confused. I think it was on Rampage, where they had Big Bill and Jericho have a little backstage segment where it's like Jericho accepts him to sit under the learning tree, and I'm like, holy shit. I mean, it's a great pairing. Never count out Chris Jericho. We've been down this path. What, like 18 months ago, 2 years ago, something to that effect, where people were like, get off TV, take a 6-month break. We're sick of seeing you. And he reinvents himself. And people, and even at that moment back then, people were saying he's fat, he's out of shape. It was that time, that time he couldn't land the lion salt, where he sort of flubbed it. You're like, you're washed, hit the bricks. And he proves them all wrong, gets into shape, comes back, gets another long run, entertaining. And this is exactly the same thing that's happening. It's cyclical. People get sick of Jericho, and then all of a sudden, Chris Jericho starts doing something. And he's back on. Once again, he's intriguing. Once again, there's something good about this. Like the disingenuous mentor, the sleazy, that sleazy type of character that goes so well with Chris Jericho. Again, you can dislike him for all the reasons, all the outside reasons you want. You can. And you can buy into stories. You can be mad about him because of his wife. You can, whatever the fuck. But when I'm talking here about pro wrestling and what he does on a weekly basis, it's hard to not look at this and not be impressed. Now, until there's some really evil shit that comes out. Like stuff where you're like, this is unforgivable. This is disgusting. This is bad. Well, I'm going to pump the brakes a bit on all of that. And I'm going to focus on what's real and concrete. And what's real and concrete is that Chris Jericho is once again proving his detractors wrong. And it's tremendous. And I'm here for it. We get a recap of Mercedes Money from last week coming in, all the brouhaha with Willow Nightingale. And then Nightingale, Statlander, and Stokely, they're all backstage. They talk about the kerfuffle and so on and so forth. And it's fine. And basically, Willow accepts the challenge, right? And we're ready to go. Claudio Castagnoli defeated Brian Cage. This was a good physical match. I enjoyed it. I give it a 3.25 star. It was good. Two guys that I think work well. They work well together. I thought that was fun. This was very fun. Good, physical, brutal. Renee Paquette is with Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero, basically what they did here is they established that he has no longer anything to do with the best friend stuff. We were all associated, but now I'm off doing my things on my own. And then he challenges Kyle O'Reilly to a fight on Rampage. And then the main event match was Serena Deeb versus Mariah May. I didn't like this. First of all, Serena Deeb babyface, I think it's a choice. And it's not a good one. I think for the style of wrestling that she does, and especially the gimmick that she has, which is I'm the professor, I'll twist you into knots, I'll, whatever the fuck. That's a heel gimmick where you're basically saying, I'm going to slow things down and I'm going to twist you into knots and I'm going to do things to you that, but I'm going to hurt you essentially, right? It's not to me, an exciting gimmick for a babyface. And those who are able to pull it off, well, they do it usually because they have a tremendous personality and great charisma, which are two things that Serena Deeb does not have. Serena Deeb's claim to fame here, her hook is the wrestling. Fine. So maybe you're like, well, I mean, you can get over as a babyface in AEW by being a great pro wrestler. Let her be a pro wrestler. Well, if you're doing the fucking Paradise Lock, which, is inherently a silly move, right? Despite the fact that the former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, two removed, I should say, not the former, but one of the, used to do that, was part of his arsenal. If you're doing the Paradise Lock and you want to make it convincing, well, you have to make it work. And Serena Deeb, this professor who knows all these holds, is supposed to be like, Deeb's dojo and all that, couldn't fucking do it right. And she puts Mariah into the position and sort of does the hand thing, but you can see as she's executing it, she's like, oh fuck. This is not where this hand goes, because the idea is that the idea is that you're using someone's body weight to trap their arms like between their legs, and so they're stuck, right? And they're using the body weight against them. That's essentially what the Paradise Lock is. And then she does it, and Mariah May clearly has a hand free, and Mariah May is selling this like she's stuck. So it goes on to her as well. If someone's trying out the Paradise that does this, and Mariah May should have jumped right up and said, oh, yeah, double flip her off. Fuck you. I got out of it. And then Deeb was like, kicked to the midsection. Let's do it again. And then she fucking gets it right. But you can see it. She does it. She has it all set up. And she's like, I don't know. You can see she draws a blank. She's like, oh, I fucked up. And then she just twists Mariah over. And Mariah's like, When she has one arm, which is completely free. And then Deeb points at it. That's the ridiculous thing. And then Deeb goes to like this to the audience and points at it. And everyone's like, what? What are we clapping about? And most people don't even know what the Paradise Lock is. I thought Deeb's control segments here were slow, kind of boring, and a little sloppy. Mariah May in this match, she hits a missile dropkick, a Stardom missile dropkick, where you can feel the impact yourself. Like this one wasn't like, oh, they cut to the back because that's what they always do, right? Fucking pro wrestling cuts, where you don't see the move because they cut to the back of the person getting the move. They move to an angle where you don't see the move land, just in case they miss their shot, just in case, But Mariah May, you didn't see the feet land on Deeb's chest, but you felt it. Anyway, there's something that happens in the ropes that ends up it's kind of sloppy, ends up in a single leg crab by Deeb, and she does the knee thing, and Mariah May's not giving up, so Toni Storm throws in the towel, and Serena Deeb wins. I don't know, man. This was not good. And as it stands right now, Mariah May is turning into one of the cornerstones of this division. She is solid every time. She's as reliable as she can be. Anyway, main event segment. The Kenny Omega stuff. Oh, no, wait. Before that, there's Kyle O'Reilly, who comes up to Adam Copeland, who's being interviewed backstage, and says, oh, you're an inspiration, and I'll help you if you ever need backup, and, he's staring down the TNT title. Anyway. So Kenny Omega hits the ring. And basically, look, I'm not going to run down the entire promo in and about itself, right? And I'm always a little anxious when it comes to Kenny doing solo promos because he is one of the best wrestlers to ever do it, but his promo work can be a little iffy at times. I don't think anyone will ever say Kenny Omega one of the greatest promos in pro wrestling history. He's uneven. How about that? Basically, he said, recently that he was diagnosed with diverticulitis, and at some point he was 24 hours away from dying, and he was told that he needed surgery. They needed to fillet him, and that they did that. If they did that right away, he'd have a colostomy bag with him, maybe for a couple of years, maybe 5 years, maybe the rest of his life. So, because the idea being, and he puts this over very severely. He puts this over saying that if he doesn't get the surgery, he'll have a ticking time bomb in his gut for the rest of his life. And any blunt force trauma in the stomach could kill him. So we're all sitting there going, this fucking sucks, because it's Kenny Omega and everyone loves Kenny, And he says since that day, he had to stop. And his hands would shake because he felt scared, felt pathetic. And maybe, this was his time to come out and tell us that he was retiring. Then he watched Dynasty. He put over the Ospreay Danielson match, put over Swerve winning the title. And he wishes he could be happy, but then he started getting the shakes again. But then he realized that it's not because he realized that it wasn't because he was scared. It's because he was going through withdrawal. And the way he delivered that line was tremendous. And I was like, oh, this is good, Kenny. And he needs to be in the ring. He's going to wrestle again. And he's going to come back, even if he has to exhaust every option that exists. Whether there's a 10% chance, 5% chance, 1% chance, bag or no bag, he's not done. And he vowed to change the world, and he says, since we're talking about colostomy bags, I want to talk about 2 other shit bags. Which is funny because Kenny doesn't swear often. And he calls out the Bucks. And he's like, there's another EVP here, right? But instead of the Bucks coming out, it's Kazuchika Okada. And Omega, and they stand nose to nose. And this is where this is a shit crowd. Because no one cared here. Well, not that no one cared. There were some holy shit chants. But this crowd, they were, when I say they, I mean AEW was waiting for this crowd to sort of go bonkers, right? And they did. And I didn't go bonkers. I thought that, oh, okay, we're doing this, because look, I've seen the Omega Okada matches. I've seen all of them. Well, the epics, right? I'm not salivating at the mouth to relive this in AEW. There's, it's like a reboot. It's like when they reboot a franchise you really like. It's why are we reiterating this? Let the memories exist, right? But I also understand that nostalgia is important in pro wrestling. I also, I understand that this is something that maybe a lot of North American fans never saw. So I can accept that I'm on an island here, but my prevailing thought is don't reboot Back to the Future. Back to the Future is a perfect film. It doesn't need to be modernized. It's fine. It's a symbol of the time. It's a delightful 80s movie and a perfect film overall. I think it's a perfect film. So, they're standing nose to nose. I feel that, despite what I'm feeling, what I feel about, Okada and Omega in AEW, I would have thought the audience would have been a little crazier about this. Omega talks about their rivalry. Kazuchika says, I'm sorry, but I'm the best bout machine now. I'm telling you. And Okada just comes off as a complete shitbag. Speaking of shitbags, right? And then Jack Perry attacks Omega from behind, and then they gang up on him, but Kenny fights back, lands a dragon suplex on Jack Perry, but immediately he goes to his stomach, right? And Kenny, I think, was probably going for a V-trigger, runs the rope, Okada trips him up, and then Jack Perry comes right back at him and rams the chair right in the stomach. And everyone's panicking, and Kenny's bent over and he's in pain, and the Bucks come down, and you think that they're gonna ease everything up, but no. EVP trigger. FTR come in to make the save. And as Rampage begins, there's the rest of the angle where Kenny does a stretcher job, and they're taking him backstage, and FTR's there, and they're going towards the ambulance, but then the Elite jump FTR, beat him up, they beat up the paramedics, or whoever, the security, whatever, and then they flip the gurney over, and Kenny's on the floor and he's in agony, and I think it's great. I think this was a very good angle to end a very weird show, nonetheless. But the Kenny's setup here all made sense, because at first I was like, this promo's strange. Again, like the vibe was this promo's a little weird. What is he doing? What is he trying to say? Is he going to take some time off? And, Kenny, like I said, promo stuff isn't his forte. I thought it was good. I thought it improved. It got better, especially when he did the withdrawal line. But then it became clear. It became clear that Kenny Omega's stomach is going to be the new Bryan Danielson's neck. Oh, look, one would assume that Kenny Omega would not be taking bumps and shots to the stomach if he wasn't cleared to wrestle. And that maybe all of this diverticulitis talk that he's been hyping up also on social media and here, maybe it's all a work. I'm not saying that he didn't have diverticulitis, and there's levels of severity, and maybe he's overdoing it here. Maybe he's talking about dying and the colostomy bags. Maybe he's just playing this up for effect. He's getting it working. Getting the interest flowing, getting the emotions flowing, working. Because if he's not ready, he's not clear for months, why would you do this? There's no reason to do this if he's not ready to go or close to. There's no reason. Why would you tease this match if there's a doubt that it will ever happen, right? Why would you do this huge angle? He'll probably be off TV for a couple of weeks as well. Sure. Yeah, Or maybe he'll just bounce back next week like a good superhero babyface should, right? Who knows? Maybe he'll wrestle under the specter that his insides, his gut is, about to be torn asunder so he can die in the ring. Maybe it's a shoot, maybe it's a work. Maybe my guess is that there's a little bit of column A and it's a little bit of column B, that he most assuredly has the condition, but that it's not as severe as we're making it out to be. I thought this was fun. Again, another fun segment by the Elite, the Bucks at the end, taking out one of your faves. Now, I honestly even wouldn't be surprised if this is the match that they run at, that this is that this becomes the marquee match that they run at Double or Nothing. When is it? Double or Nothing is soon though, right? Double or Nothing, 2024, May 26th. So yeah, so it's like 3 weeks. You got 3 weeks to build this. Which leads me to believe that he won't be sidelined for weeks then. That he'll come back maybe next week, rib tape, and he'll come back to get a pound of flesh from the Elite, from Kazuchika Okada. It's like, Okada, you son of a bitch. I'm going to be Continental Champion. Or do they save this for Wembley? Because they're not running in a forbidden door. These are two AEW guys. Do you save this for Wembley? Maybe, there's, I don't know. But it was, weird vibe promo until we got to the angle. And I really liked the angle, but I'm iffy on how we got there. And I'm iffy on a lot of things on this show. Weird vibes. The vibes were just strange and off. And because if Tony Khan is indeed shoot not on location, and this is like how things are going to operate without him being around, then I'm like, well, maybe Tony should be back to run his ship. Maybe he should be keeping things. Maybe Tony should be keeping things, keeping his two hands on the wheel here. Anyway, I get like not a particularly good show. Weird, the wrestling didn't save it. Like I said, the Chris Jericho Katsuyori Shibata match I thought was a blast, but other than that, like. Good little thing, the matches, right? Real quick. So the Samoa Joe squash was tremendous. Don't get me wrong. I said, but it's a squash match. What do you want from me? Adam Copeland, Buddy Matthews. Weird match. Didn't care for it. Jericho versus Katsuyori Shibata. I thought it was a blast. But again, we're not talking like, I'm not tearing the house down. It's good, a good, fun blast. Claudio Castagnoli and Brian Cage. It was good. It was fine. Nothing to write home about. Serena Deeb versus Mariah May. I thought it stunk. There you go. And then the segments. And, there wasn't a runaway successful segment, although the angle, the post promo angle was tremendous. I don't know what to tell you. What do you want from me? You want my honest opinion. You want my free from PR, unbiased likes and dislikes. There you go. No one's telling me, Warren, you have to tell them that you like this. No one's telling me that. Why would they? I'm a D-list podcaster. Why would anyone come out here and start to try to control the flow of information from the Mr. Warren Hayes show? Come on now. I'm not that big yet. There we go. We'll just wrap it up for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I will be back on Tuesday for the Mr. Warren Hayes show proper. It's going to be Review-O-Rama. WWE Backlash France and the New Japan Dontaku shows. They're going to be talking about those and whatever nonsense has happened in pro wrestling in the meantime. So you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you next time.